Blind loyalty. It is a story of old times when forts touched the sky and kings were immersed in their glory and splendor. In those days, loyalty was worth more than life, but the poison of disloyalty often destroyed cities. Introduction to the characters. 1. Sultan Kamal Khan, a brave and just ruler, but a prisoner of his own pride. 2. Zuleikha, a delicate, innocent, but rebellious girl who was the Sultan's fiancée. 3. Amir, a soldier whose eyes were filled with dreams and whose heart was filled with rebellion. 4. Nawab Feroz, the Sultan's minister who was constantly weaving a web of conspiracies. Beginning. Sultan Kamal Khan's empire spread over rivers and mountains. Thousands of soldiers were ready to give their lives at his command. But there was one thing that he could not control: Zuleikha. Zuleikha's beauty attracted everyone to her like the flame of a lamp. But her heart was written for someone else. This secret was unknown to anyone except her heart and the man who lived in the shadow of the palace walls, Amir the soldier. Amir and Zuleikha met one night when Zuleikha was sitting quietly in the palace garden crying. Amir was on guard, but Zuleikha's tears broke the sword of his heart. He came closer and said in a soft voice, "Princess, if the heart is heavy, it is better to pour it out with your eyes." But tears do not melt the stones of the palace. This was the moment when two strangers came close to each other. Zuleikha shared the burden of her heart with someone for the first time, and Amir broke his boundaries for the first time. The depth of the secret. With time, the meetings between Zuleikha and Amir increased. They would meet behind the old garden wall where no soldier would come. Zuleikha was weaving dreams with her eyes, and Amir was weaving courage with his breath. But fate is never kind to love. Vizier Feroz knew this secret. Seeing the opportunity, he whispered poison in Sultan Kamal Khan's ear. "Wear refuge. The greatest attack on your honor and empire is made by those who are close. There is treachery in the heart of your fiancée, and she is in love with a soldier." The Sultan, in anger, struck his sword against the wall. Pride and jealousy clouded his intellect. But he did not make any hasty decisions. He wanted to see with his own eyes. It was a moonlit night. Zuleikha and Amir met in the corner of the garden. There was fear in Zuleikha's eyes, but love trembled on her lips. "Amir, we must go far from here. If the Sultan finds out, he will not leave you alive." Amir held her hand and said, "I know, but love is greater than death. Even if we have to die, we will not be separated." That was the moment when the Sultan came out from behind the tree. Blood came into his eyes, and the edge of his sword shone in the moonlight. "Zuleikha, is this your loyalty? You have thrown my honor at the feet of a soldier?" Zuleikha trembled, but she plucked up the courage to say, "Sultan, love cannot be imprisoned in chains. I belong to Amir in my heart, even if I can never be with him in body." These words pierced the Sultan's pride like an arrow. He raised his sword, but Amir stepped forward and said, "Take my life, but spare Zuleikha." Revenge and end. Vizier Feroz whispered in the Sultan's ear, "Where is the refuge? Leaving such people alive is an insult to the empire. The punishment should be such that it will be remembered for centuries." The Sultan decided. Amir was thrown into the darkest cell of the fort, where the sunlight never reached. And Zuleikha was imprisoned in a part of the fort where there were no mirrors, so that he would never see his own image. Years passed. Amir's eyes became blind in the darkness, but his heart still beat for Zuleikha. Zuleikha's beauty faded, but only one prayer remained on her lips: "O God, bring Amir close to me, even if it means death." One night, there was a rebellion in the fort. The enemies broke the fort. In the commotion, Zuleikha escaped from her confinement and reached the dark cell. There, Amir was sitting leaning against the wall, half dead. Zuleikha held his hand and said, "Look, Amir, we have met again. This fort may fall, this kingdom may end, but our love is alive." Amir said in a weak voice, "Zuleikha, the darkness took away my eyes, but your touch kept my heart bright. Now I only want one light, your last glimpse." Zuleikha cried and hugged him to her chest. At that moment, the roof of the fort collapsed under the enemy's attack, and stones fell on both of them. People later dug up their bodies together. It is said that Zuleikha's fingers were frozen in Amir's hands, and both of them had smiles of peace on their faces. Sultan Kamal Khan saved his empire, but he never found peace in his life. People still call his decision blind loyalty, because he buried two hearts in darkness out of pride. And the village elders still tell the children, love is not blind. The real blind person is the one who refuses to recognize it. Even after being buried under the rubble of the fort, the love of Zuleikha and Amir did not end. The village elders often said, "They did not die, they came to life in a story." The walls of the fort had fallen, but the story continued to breathe among the stones. The enemies looted the fort and set it on fire, and the entire city was reduced to ashes. Sultan Kamal Khan regrouped his army and defeated the enemy. But despite his victory, there was a defeat in his heart that could never be overcome. The Sultan's conscience. In the darkness of the night, Sultan Kamal Khan would often sit alone, look at his sword, and remember the moment when Zuleikha and Amir stood before him. They were both ready to sacrifice their lives, but the Sultan's eyes were blinded by pride. One night he dreamed that Zuleikha and Amir were walking hand in hand in the garden of the fort, and were saying to him, "Kamal Khan, those who imprisoned love remain imprisoned themselves. We are free, and you are still prisoners today." This dream deepened a wound in the Sultan's heart. Day or night, wherever he went, he would see the blackness of the Amir's blind eyes and Zuleikha's tearful smile. Minister Feroz's conspiracy. Minister Feroz, who had mixed this poison, now considered himself the strongest. The Sultan was becoming weaker, and Feroz was taking advantage of his weakness to increase his power. He would say to the remaining chieftains of the fort, "The Sultan is weak, his decisions are made by emotions, now we need a new Sultan." But the story of Zuleikha and Amir had taken root in the hearts of the people. They began to doubt Feroz's words. A sign of love. One day, while digging in the rubble, some workers pulled out two skeletons from under the stones. They were both wrapped together as if they could not be separated even after death. People were surprised to see that Zuleikha's skeletal hands were still clasped in the Amir's skeletal hands. This news spread throughout the city. Women cried, children listened in amazement, and men looked up to the sky and said, "This is love, which defeats even death." Sultan Kamal Khan also fell to the ruins of the fort as soon as he heard this news. He saw the structures of the two with his own eyes. At that moment, his pride broke. He said softly, "I killed love in blind loyalty, but love defeated death." Punishment or atonement. The Sultan decided to bury them both in the royal cemetery, but the people refused. "No, Sultan," the elder said. "These two were not royals, they were princes of love. They should not be buried in the royal cemetery, but in the garden where their love was born." The Sultan was obliged. Zuleikha and Amir were buried near the old wall of the garden. A small tomb was built there, and people came and laid flowers there. The end of Feroz. Seeing all this, Minister Feroz became angry and said, "This story of love is a weakness. If people remember it, the empire will never be strong." He planned to break the tomb and destroy the symbol of love. But as soon as he ordered the workers, a storm came at night. Lightning struck and fell not on the tomb, but on the palace of Minister Feroz. In the morning, people saw that the minister had burned to ashes. People said, "He who lays his hand on love will never be safe." Impact on future generations. Years passed. The walls of the fort became ruins, but the graves of Zuleikha and Amir became a place of pilgrimage for people. Every new bride would go there and pray, "Oh God, give us love like Zuleikha and Amir, but not arrogance like Sultan Kamal Khan." Children would play there and listen to how the elders would tell them. Blind loyalty turns a person to stone, but love makes a person immortal. The Sultan's last moment. After many years, Sultan Kamal Khan fell ill. He had neither the strength of an army nor the cunning of a minister. Only one thing remained: regret. Before he died, he said to his servant, "Take me to the garden where Amir and Zuleikha are sleeping." When he reached there, he knelt down by the grave. With tears flowing from his eyes, he said, "O Zuleikha, O Amir, my pride was my greatest enemy. I pushed you both into the darkness, but today I am dying in that darkness myself. Forgive me." It is said that Sultan Kamal Khan died there that night. Instead of burying him in the royal cemetery, people buried him in that garden, some distance from the graves of Zuleikha and Amir. Centuries later, that garden still remains. Flowers bloom around the tomb and birds chirp. People come there and say, "Love is not blind. Only loyalty that worships pride is blind." Love is that lamp that burns even after death.